Let's talk about every book I read in 2025. These are just some of them. So this video, if you haven't guessed, is gonna be a book wrapped for 2025. So I'm gonna do a little review / would I recommend each of the books that I've read and how much I've rated them. Usually me and Bella do these videos together, but this year we've just not been able to organise. So we're going to do 2 episodes. This is my episode. Bella read a lot more than me. She's a very quick reader and I don't have too much time to read at the minute, but I'm going to be making more time for it. Let's get into it. So I'm going to start by pulling up my favourite app, which is TBR Bookshelf. If you don't have an app yet to like log your books and you're looking for one, I really recommend this. It's a bit more niche. Like obviously a lot of people use Goodreads and other stuff like that, but I think this is super cute. This is in a different Christmas theme, so it's green and red, but you get to physically see on a little bookshelf how many books you've read. So that's a bit of a spoiler of how many I've read. Yeah, so in 2025, I read 15 books. My goal was 25, so obviously I did miss that. But I think the previous year, I think I managed to read 20. So I like upped it from then, and obviously I did end up reading less. But every single book that I've read, I think, unless we go through and I remember, I would either recommend or I would read again. So I'm really happy with everything that I've read. And this year I've been seeing a lot of people saying, like even people like my favourite girlie, Steph Bora, about how like we shouldn't just be reading just to fill a goal of like 100 books a year. Like reading intentionally, reading books that we want to and we're enjoying instead of just filling a quota. I think that's something that like Book Talk has definitely been pushing, and it makes me feel insecure that I've only read 15, but I think even if you just read one book, you're doing well. So I'm gonna go in chronological order from the start of the year. So the first book I read, I don't actually have with me, it was one that I borrowed from Isabella, was The Christmas Postcards by Karen Swan. So I rated this a 3.5, which means that I did enjoy it and it was a strong book, but like, you know, it wasn't life altering. Bella really enjoys Karen Swan, like she's one of her favourite authors. I can get into her. She does a lot of like what I would call maybe dual narrative. So you've got present tense narrative and then a past tense narrative. And then sometimes they overlap. Yeah, I think I enjoyed it. I had nothing to write home about. I would definitely recommend it if you want something that's obviously set at Christmas time, around Christmas time. I'm not really into Christmassy books that much, to be honest, but it was a nice thing to read in January and when the months are gross. Then next, I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This is one of my, okay, this is opening a different debate. This is one of my favourite Harry Potter books and movies, The Goblet of Fire. So I was very excited to read it because I do love the film so much. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. It's got like so many good characters in it. It's a really good concept. Like it's a different concept for her. Like obviously the tournament element. I think obviously the one thing that I struggle with, because I've done it the wrong way around, which I'll hold my hands up and admit, was that obviously I've watched all the films and then now I'm reading the books. So there is a level of like, okay, the predictability of the book is there, but as I'm finding, as I slowly make it through Harry Potter, there is a lot of stuff that didn't make it into the movies. So that is definitely piquing my interest. Also at the minute I'm actually trying to pick up, because I started it a while ago, I'm trying to pick it back up. I'm reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is so big. Anyone that's ever picked it up or like tried to read it, it's like 800 pages. So you'll have to wait for me to give you my opinion on that. Definitely recommend anyone to read Harry Potter if you're a fan of the movies, or even if you're not a fan of the movies and you just fancy, like, if anything, it's probably better to read them before you've watched the movies. Obviously they do get larger as they go along, that's the only thing that I'm finding. And then third book of the year, I read, sorry I don't have it again, the third Gilmore Girl, which is a biography written by, so the TV show Gilmore Girls is written by Kelly Bishop, who plays Emily Gilmore in the show. Obviously I've watched Gilmore Girls, Bella's quite a big fan of the show. I just honestly found her life super interesting because I didn't know much about her. I knew that she was like quite renowned, but I didn't really know why or what for. But reading the book, I just learned so much about how she was such a big name in like Broadway history, and obviously like all the things that she had to go through to get to the TV show. And it was just a really interesting like biography. So if anyone does enjoy like a celebrity biography, read it, especially if you have like any interest in like creative arts or like performance. It's very interesting, and because of the time that she was around in Broadway, has this level of like stardom, and it feels quite fictional just because of the culture and like the places and the names that are being dropped. So it's a really good one. Then moving on, I did something that I won't regret doing. I actually do have some of them here. So this was my first series of 2025. I only have 2 out of the 5. Yeah, I started ACOTAR. So I obviously started with A Court of Thorns and Roses, moved on to Mist and Fury. Then I read Wings and Ruin, Frost and Starlight. Which the first book I rated 4 stars, and at the time I loved it so much. And I remember being on the fence with Bella and I was like, oh my god, this is so good. And her and our friend Sarah, who we just love books and we're always talking about books, were like, oh, okay, well, you're gonna love the rest even more. And I was like, what? And I was like, well, everyone says that's the worst book. And I was like, okay, I'm reading this like really good book and people are telling me this is worse than the rest of the series. That's crazy. It wasn't until I got onto Mist and Fury, then I was like, okay, you're not being dramatic. I see what you're saying. And honestly, I think that Mist and Fury, which is the second, is probably my favourite out of all 5. Like, looking back on it, I rated it 4.5 stars. Like, it's got like the spice if you want spice, but it also does have like a lot of like emotional connection between the characters. And then obviously it was just kind of me finding myself enjoying like romantasy and fantasy books for the first time. So yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I don't know if it's a spoiler, so maybe just skip 10 seconds ahead if you haven't read it yet. But I think the reason I like that one is because we'd made the shift from the first love interest to the second love interest, and I did prefer the second love interest in the end. Yeah, and I just think that all the characters are written beautifully well, and then as the series moves on into like Wings and Ruin, we start to like learn more about the found family tropes and like the other characters that are such a big part of this series. So I read 4 in a row, and then for some reason I think I wanted a little break because obviously I'd read like 4 of her books in a row and it was getting on to summertime. So I read this, which I have read before. I read Dear John just for a bit of a palate cleanser because I was looking at like an 800-page book to read and I was like, okay, well, I kind of want to read something summary while I can. So yeah, that might have been a bit weird of me, but who cares? So I rated this 4 stars. I honestly really love this author. Like, I've loved him for a few years now, and it's very like basic of me, but he writes brilliant books that get made into really great movies. I think the books are often better than the movies. So obviously he's wrote Dear John, things like The Notebook, I think The Longest Ride. My personal favourite is Safe Haven, and I reread Safe Haven any chance I'll get, like most summers. So I switched to Dear John this summer. It's obviously quite an emotional romance, which I feel like I prefer those. I don't really like happy rom-com type books or movies. I'd rather literally either do romancy or something a bit more like emotional. It's not like very spicy, this book, but that's kind of why I like it. It is quite sad, obviously the ending, if you haven't, I won't spoil it, but if you haven't watched the movie or the book, it's not necessarily like an ending that you would want, but it's quite a realistic ending. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I do love Nicholas's writing style, and I think that's why I just like this book so much. And he always sets it in the most like beautiful locations. It's always like a beachy American town. And yeah, so this is a good one, like a beachy read, but it's also a bit more sophisticated if you want to move away from like the book talk of it all. So try some Nicholas Sparks books and you'll be loving your life on the beach, but also maybe shedding a few tears at the end. And then I jumped back to ACOTAR and finished with Court of Silver Flames, which initially, okay, if I'm remembering this wrong, please don't come for me. So if I'm remembering it right, this is the book that is centered around the sister rather than our original main characters, our original couple. So at first I found it really hard to get into this because I was like, okay, why am I now like 4 books with like whatever the name is, like Reese and Farah, and it's like, okay, now I'm switching to Nesta, and I personally found her quite an unlikable character at first. She does like Sarah J Maas does a lot of like reasoning and like contextualizing why Nesta ends up obviously being kind of a bitch, let's be honest. And obviously by the end I did give in, and I do like her a lot, but I actually prefer her love interest. Like I think he's a lot more of a likeable character, so I obviously stayed for that. And yeah, in the end it was a really good book. I think it was a bit of a random move. I don't know if that was just me that thought that, because obviously like the series is like, okay, 4 books are about this one couple, and then the last one's kind of focusing on Nesta and Cassian. But yeah, I definitely think that by the end of the book, by the middle of the book, there's some really good action sequences in it. I really like the feminine element she focused on, because she kind of has this storyline running through it about like female warriors and like how they're not really allowed in specific of like the cultures in the world. They're not really allowed to do certain things or to become warriors, or even just to like work/live outside of like the kitchen. Like we know how this works, we've seen it in real life, but she just kind of made it into a fantasy storyline. There's a lot of like yearning in this book, I would say. Like it's a lot of like back and forth, like when she wants him, he doesn't want her, and then when he wants her, she doesn't want him. And they kind of, these two are overthinkers. That's the only thing that sometimes niggled me at this book. Like sometimes you're like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just speak. Like, let's just communicate. That's their issue. But I did rate it 4.5 stars. So I really enjoyed it. Overall, I would probably rate the whole series 4.5 stars. I know that Bella has read Throne of Glass and that she keeps begging me to read Throne of Glass. So I'm sure I'll read Throne of Glass, whatever the series is called, soon, because apparently it's supposed to be better than this, but I don't know if I'm really ready to move on from ACOTAR. But we'll just see. Maybe that's what 2026 will bring. It is such a big series though. Like it's like 8 books, so I don't know if I have that in me. Okay, then doing like a bit of a 360 swivel, I read this book, which is Want, and it's written by, well, collected by Gillian Anderson, which is obviously an actress. If you know, you know. This book's really unusual. So basically, to sum up in the best way I can, she put out a like call, like an inbox, like across loads of different sites, for anonymous letters written by women all across the world about like their fantasies. So it's definitely kind of not a book for everyone. Personally, I love this kind of thing. Like it was very eye-opening for me, and it's obviously like if you're interested in like feminism and female pleasure, this is the book for you. But I just found it so interesting. Literally the whole book is different anonymous letters, so it's not chapters, which is really quite a nice pace to read, because you can just read 1 letter per day or whatever. And then the people that write the letters can choose to give information about themselves. Like they could tell you their age, their ethnicity, their religion, how much they earn, if they're in a relationship or not. They don't have to, but they can. And then Gillian herself also submitted an anonymous letter in here. So that was quite fun, like reading through, being like, okay, I wonder who this is. I think I actually really like this book. Like it's quite intense. Like I read it alongside things, I think, because obviously, you know, It's intense, let's just say that. I'm trying to keep it PG. Also the cover is just gorgeous, like the pink is gorge. But yeah, eye-opening, and it was quite like interesting in terms of like you would read someone's fantasy and let's just say it would be about like someone in their life or whatever, and then you'd get to the end and it would be like, okay, we're married or we're in with a partner, or all their fantasy would be about like women, but then they can disclose their sexuality and it would say that they were straight. So like it's a very eye-opening experience on like sexuality, preference, fantasies, and just, yeah, highlighting women's pleasure. So it's not for everyone, but if you fancy something like non-fiction and you're into this kind of thing, definitely pick this up. I got this from Waterstones, and I think, yeah, a lot of my friends want to borrow it. Like, I think it's one that's going to get passed around. I started tabbing in it as well. So that was that. Then I moved on and I started what would become a little bit of a trope this year when I read The Tree House, which is well, I would say it's a thriller because it's not really a murder mystery, because the book starts and you find out who killed the girl in the book. So it's kind of a reverse murder mystery. Instead of trying to find who it is, you're watching the murderers trying to get away with it, which I thought was a really interesting take. Yeah, so it was a thriller. I loved the cover when I was in Waterstones. I think that's genuinely what drew me to it. I love like the fact that it's like set in summertime, set obviously in a tree house. So yeah, it follows this bit of a split plot line again, similar to Karen Swan. So you follow two boys in past tense doing the original murder when they're in a treehouse, and then I think it's a 20-year flash forward to the second plot line where you see the adult men trying to get away with the murder. So the hook of the book is that they committed a murder in a specific way, and then 20 years later a TV show comes out with all the exact same details of the murder they managed to get away with. So obviously it sends them into panic and they're trying to get away with it because they were wondering if someone knows if what they've done. They did, spoiler alert. Yeah, it's a really good book. The only I did have some issues with it. Let me see what I rated it, but I did have issues. I rated it 3. So okay, at the time loved it, really enjoyed it, but when I came to the end, my personal opinion was the third act was very messy. It was kind of felt a little bit like, okay, what can we do to wrap this up? And without spoiling it, it's one of those where it feels like everyone had their finger in the pie. So if you know what I mean, I think you'll get it. But yeah, that kind of annoys me. Like, I think it was a bit of a stretch for the ending, but yeah, it's definitely worth a read if you can pick it up. It had some interesting tropes on like incel culture and like the dangers of the internet, and it also had like cult or like secret society tropes as well, which was really interesting to read. I've never read anything like that before, so yeah, pick that one up if you want. Then I moved on to something that I've been waiting to read for too long, every day since it came out. I read Sunrise on the Reaping, which I literally wanted to read as soon as it came out, but I refused to buy hardbacks. This is actually my housemate's. So I eventually was like, hi, can I borrow your book please, because I can't wait any longer. And luckily I did, because then I read it and then the trailer came out and I was like, I'm happy that I've read it. And going into the movie, I know what I know. Do you see what I'm saying? I wouldn't have wanted to watch the movie without reading the book first. I loved it. Like, it's been a while now since I've read it, but I rated it 4 stars. Obviously, so excited to see Haymitch in the leading lady role. It was really interesting to see his younger self. Obviously, it's so different to his older self that I think we see in the movie specifically. There was a lot of, I love the farm family trope. Like, if you can't tell, I love it. And there was definitely a lot of that going on in this book, with people like Maisley and Lulu, and yeah, I'm very excited to see some of this come to life. There was very interesting kills as well. Like a lot of the kills were quite gory and very unique for Suzanne, so I am very excited about that. It was obviously sad, like I didn't get spoiled, but because it is a prequel, you go into it knowing certain things are going to happen, like, or you know, go into it knowing what his future self is like, so that kind of doesn't make it predictable, but it gives you certain context, and I think then you can kind of make predictions on like what might happen with his love interest, what might happen with his friends. And obviously it's different, it's similar to Songbirds and Snakes. It's like, okay, so we know that Haymitch is going to win his games, we just don't know how. But yeah, super interesting arena design and kill design, so if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, read it, I can't wait for the movie. Next I read the Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, which this is my first Stephen King book that I've ever read, and I'm so proud of myself for doing it because I don't know why I've not done it yet, basically. I rated it 4.5 stars. This is actually a novella, not a novel, because obviously it's tiny. And there aren't really any chapters as well. It's just like one straight through story. But I just found it super interesting. It's obviously, I don't know if I'd describe it as a thriller. But it's kind of following a few main prisoners. You've got like a narrator, as far as I'm aware. And then you're following one specific prisoner, Andy Dufresne, if I'm saying that right. And it's kind of, I mean, maybe it was fucking obvious with the cover and the movie, but I've never watched the movie. You're following him and how he operates in prison. He kind of like does really well in prison, like everyone kind of wants to be him, like he has this weird aura, and it's about him trying to escape, basically. I really enjoyed this. Like, I loved the pacing of it, was amazing. The characterization, it was a tad bit predictable. I think that's why I took the 0.5 star away. But I don't know if that's because this is obviously so old. That's lots of things will have been informed by it. But yeah, definitely read it if you haven't read it, because it doesn't take up much of your time and it's just super interesting. This was my second to last book of the year. I read Cruel Prince. I think I might have been thirsting for a little bit of what I found in ACOTAR. So this is, I would say, similar. It's romancy, but this is YA, so young adult. So it's a lot less, like, if we want to use the word spicy. But I don't mind that, actually. Like, sometimes I quite enjoy that. I'm realising, I've been speaking a lot about this lately, that I'm not really into smart. I kind of do prefer, like, fade to black, or just things that don't follow a huge romance plot. Like, I'm just not really bothered. But so yeah, I enjoyed this. Originally when I was getting into it, I was struggling, and I think if I wasn't careful I could have like DNF'd it, because I couldn't get my head around the fact that, like, so anyone that's read it will know, but if not, basically it's very similar to ACOTAR. There's like a fairy world and a human world, but the human world is quite close to ours, where in ACOTAR the human world's like very medieval. But in this book they have like phones, they have like Target, like it's weird. There's not too much mention on that, but it was just jarring me a bit. Like, so the main character comes from the human world with her sisters and ends up in the fairy world for, I won't spoil why, but yeah. And then she'll like mention something random about like, I don't know, like burgers or something, and then you're like, okay. That faded away quite quick, luckily, because I think if the whole book had been like that I wouldn't have been able to deal with it. But yeah, by the middle of the book I really enjoyed it. It is an enemies to lovers, I would say. It's also one of them ones where you're kind of not sure who the love interest will be, but maybe that was also obvious, but I only clocked on like maybe a quarter way through. I was kind of like, this feels dodgy. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and this is a series as well, so I might pick up the second one to give it a go, because the second half of the book was 10 times better than the first half. Like, I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere, this is getting good. Like, I would recommend, if you've not read ACOTAR or the Cruel Prince series, to read this first, because I think because I'd read ACOTAR first, and I think ACOTAR does everything so well that this almost seemed a little bit mediocre, but that's only because I'd already read ACOTAR and they're so similar. So read this one first if you want to, and then move on to things like ACOTAR and Throne of Glass, just because I think this is like a good intro to like romantasy. And my final book of the year, I read The Long Walk. I went to see this in the cinema when it came out in 2025. I can't remember what month it was, but I hadn't read the book at that point. Me and my friend went, oh my god, I was so gagged in the cinema. I was like, this is amazing. Like, the pacing of the movie was insane. The concept was insane. But I was speaking to my friend about it, and she said that made changes from the book to the movie. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Because in the movie, so a brief outline is that I think it's 100 boys sign up to do this long walk where they basically start walking with, it's like ran by like the military, and if you drop below, in the movie it's 3 miles per hour, I think, or 3 kilometers per hour. In the book it's 4 kilometers per hour. You get your ticket. That's what they keep saying in the film, in the movie, in the book. It's like, oh, you'll get your ticket. What I mean is you'll be killed. Okay, so such an interesting concept. It's like very dystopian, which we know I love, and it's obviously a thriller as well. Well, actually this one's probably nearing on horror because some of the things that happen in it. But yeah, so I enjoyed the movie so much that I was like, okay, I want to read this book, see what's different. It is quite different. They changed the whole ending from the book to the movie. I was speaking about this on the other day on the phone to Bella. I researched into why they changed it. I agree with them. I think they should have changed it for the movie. The movie ending is a lot more optimistic. This ending is quite, not depressing, but it's a downward look at so like society and like the whole experience in general. Obviously it's a crazy experience and not a good thing to be doing, but in the end the winner kind of feels a bit like we're like, okay, did you win, did you not win, I'm confused, right? So yeah, and there's a lot more, I think, context in this book about some of the characters, and you get like the culture at the time that Stephen was trying to convey. Yeah, there's so much interesting like metaphors in this that you should research if you kind of into that thing. But something interesting was that when I was reading it, there's a little note written by The Guardian, and it's about how The Long Walk is, obviously it's been out ages. It was when he was writing under his pseudonym, and he says that this writer from The Guardian says that The Long Walk stamp is all over dystopian like future novels, future films, including The Hunger Games. Like you can see its footprints everywhere. And I was like, okay, that's a super interesting way to look at it. Maybe a chapter in, I could not agree more. Like, I think this paved the way for The Hunger Games, which I obviously love so much. So it was really interesting to read like an original book of this genre. So that is every single book that I read in 2025, which is crazy. If you've enjoyed this video, Isabella's video should be coming out next Friday, and she's read a lot more than me, and we've read quite a lot of different books, so definitely watch that one. So this year I've set my reading goal a bit lower. I think I set it to 20, so I'm trying to push from this year onwards. Yeah, I set it to 20. I'm obviously reading Order of the Phoenix right now. I also have a few other books that I've started, so I need to finish those. So yeah, we're going to be trying doing more book content on here anyway. So leave us a little like or a comment if you kind of enjoy these videos. It's nice to know who likes this content, who doesn't really like this content. Because me and Bella obviously just love book videos and like review videos. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you got a few recommendations from this. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.